So it's been a little more than a year since the release of Toho's latest Godzilla project in the form of Godzilla Singular Point, and I'm sure that quite a few of you are wondering what my thoughts were on this series. I've been quite an outspoken supporter of Toho's side of the Reiwa era, with Shin Godzilla being one of my favorite Godzilla movies, and I was quite a big fan of how the Polygon trilogy turned out. Toho has earned enough goodwill from me throughout the past 5-ish years for me to be really excited for Godzilla Singular Point. I even made a whole video talking about my thoughts and hopes for the series a little after it was announced. So, with all that said, what did I think of Godzilla Singular Point? Godzilla Singular Point is pretty good. I liked it quite a bit, but honestly, I would definitely put it in the lower half of my overall Reiwa Godzilla ranking. Singular Point is a really solid time overall, and there are a few reasons that contribute to this, the first of which being its really charming cast of characters. Now, I will happily acknowledge that the cast of this show was not very deep. There is no such thing as a character arc except maybe Jet Jaguar, but for everyone else, there's not really a sense of growth or change throughout the cast. But they're all likable, and I enjoy watching them, and that's all you really need to have a good Godzilla cast. Yoon and Mei are both very likable main characters, and I think they have a bit more going on than most people think. Starting off with Yoon, the description of him being a Sherlock Holmes type is pretty darn accurate. He's shown to be rather clever in formulating different strategies to help out monsters, such as utilizing water bottles to lead the Rodan away from the toppled over bus in episode 3, or figuring out the precise moment to fire the harpoon at Anguirus in episode 6. He's also quite good when it comes to speculation and guessing, showcased in episode 1 when he gives a quite accurate description of Ashihara, as well as correctly guessing that there would be a new food item within the coming weeks, which is proven in a couple episodes with the Rodan ramen. Moving on to Mei, the primary thing that makes her really likable, especially in the first half, is that despite being a grad student and really knowledgeable in regards to what she's interested in, she is awkward and kind of a wreck in many situations where she has to interact with others, such as in episode 1, episode 3, and episode 4. It's honestly really nice to have a Godzilla character that's just introverted, someone who doesn't fill the usual scientist quota of being very stoic and spouting out lines about the nature of humanity or whatnot. This doesn't just go for the two leads. Many of the side characters also feel quite genuine and sincere. Goro and Habaru both work really well as two sidekicks of Yoon, with one being more of a straight man while the other one is the comic relief. Pero 2 is a lot of fun and always brings a smile to my face whenever he shows up, and BB pulls off the madman with a good heart trope expertly well whenever he has to tussle with Salunga. While the characters in this show are certainly nothing groundbreaking in terms of a Godzilla cast, they're still fun and engaging enough to keep you hooked and interested even when the monsters aren't on screen. On the topic of the monsters, for all but one who we'll get to later, I really liked all the monsters in this show. Rodan for me was the personal standout. Taking on a new role similar to the Gauss from the Heisei Gamera trilogy was something I did not see coming, but I thought it was really cool. The scenes that featured a huge flock soaring throughout the cities of the world were very tense and dramatic, and were some of my favorite parts of the show, especially in episode 9 when they arrive in London. That scene was stellar. I also really liked the pink form that we see in the first couple episodes. I thought he was really cute looking, and his fight with Jet Jaguar has become one of my favorites in the entire Godzilla series, not only because it shows off a great sense of weight and animalistic behavior that is unmatched in any other film, but also, it's just freaking funny. Moving on from Rodan, the rest of the monster cast was really enjoyable too. Anguirus has a really great design, animation errors aside. His new powers of being able to predict the future was really cool, and his fight with Jet Jaguar was also really fun. Salunga was a really neat new addition to the kaiju roster, and many of his scenes were quite exciting to watch, even if he just ended up being the butt monkey of the series. Manda is a neat addition that adds some variety to the catastrophe forces, and also has a great new design, and Kumonga gets a pretty neat time waster fight with Jet Jaguar, though I am admittedly disappointed that these spiders were not a reinvention of Megalon so that Jet Jaguar could have a rematch that's almost 50 years in the making. However, it's still nice to see the spiders make a return. Finally, when it comes to the monster roster of Singular Point, let's talk about Jet Jaguar. Much like everyone else, I did not initially think too much about JJ showing up in the first trailers for Singular Point. I thought, ah neat, Jet Jaguar's coming back. Never expected him in a billion years. Little did I know that this goofy little mech would be the primary force throughout the entire show, and that he would also be one of the best parts of it. I'm gonna be in the minority and say that I actually really like all the designs for JJ in this show. The stumpy-legged prototype perfectly fits that dorky aesthetic that is so iconic to Jet Jaguar, the wheeled form is a nice upgrade, and the final form truly delivers on the full potential of Jet Jaguar as a true beast of a machine that can put up a fight against anything that comes his way. I also love how this show goes about giving Jet Jaguar his sentience, having Yoon's AI take over and develop a new personality over time until he eventually resets and gains an entirely new persona in the form of Jet Jaguar Peanut, in the form of Jet Jaguar Pee-Pee, where he is sent off to battle and ultimately definitely proves to be the deciding factor in defeating Godzilla and saving the world from a catastrophe in an intense climax. To say that Jet Jaguar is one of the best elements of the show is redundant, but he truly is. He's a great character and a great addition to the cast, and the show would most certainly be much worse off without him. Before we jump into the negative half of SP, I really quickly want to get my thoughts on the technical aspects of the show out of the way. Things like animation and music and whatnot. This was something that I had my concerns about back when I made that Hopes and Concerns video a while back. My concerns being with how the characters were designed and how the 3D CG was mixed with the hand-drawn elements. And I am here to say that most of my problems were put to rest. I still think that the way that the 3D and 2D elements were mixed was pretty poor, honestly, and I think a lot of that has to do with how well detailed the 3D models for the monsters are. Kind of a backhand insult, but I gotta give credit where it's due. Look how detailed these models are. It's amazing! But I definitely wish they could have been much less detailed so they could mix better with the human characters. The 2D elements though look great. The character designs were something that I got over pretty quickly and were something that I was just able to accept. The animation itself is okay. It's not exactly very expressive, though there are a couple of funny expressions here, particularly from May. The backgrounds are also very nice to look at. Prior to the catastrophe taking over, I really love how vibrant everything is. This might be one of the most vibrant pieces of Godzilla media we've ever gotten. And even once the catastrophe is in full effect, there are a lot of great shots, especially whenever we get to look at the huge red dust tornadoes and explosions. Moving on to the music, it goes really hard. Not only do the opening and ending theme songs sound really nice, but the actual score done by Kan Sawada is really great. It harkens back to a lot of the 60s Fukube scores, and each theme sounds really good. Also, I think this might have my favorite rendition of the classic Godzilla theme. This version of the theme just has a sense of power that is unmatched by any other version. I also really love the newer parts that are added to it. They sound very classic while still feeling like their own thing, and I love that. The actual march itself also sounds really great. I love how the chanting is actually mixed with the music itself. Once again, it sounds very powerful. King of the Monsters chanting took a nice stroll down the road so that SP's chanting could sprint at Mach 6. But yeah, this show's soundtrack goes off. So with all that said, let's finally dive into the more negative half of Singular Point. The first of which is the overusage of scientific technobabble. This is the main thing that everyone has complained about when it comes to the show, and they have a point, but they also don't. Let me explain. So overall, I think that yes, the theoretical physics technobabble stuff is pretty overbearing. I've seen the show over 4 times now, and I still have trouble figuring out what some of the terminology actually is. Let's take the titular singular points for example. They're described as numerous different things throughout the entire show. First as veins of archetype that allow the monsters to show up, then as gateways between different parts of the universe, then Godzilla is described as a singular point, and then the singular points are like Aladdin's magic lamp in which you have to make a wish in order for something to happen. The show keeps bringing up tons of different explanations as to what a singular point is, and it's very confusing. Not only that, but there are tons of other things you need to keep track of, such as the previously mentioned singular points, the catastrophe, archetypes, the red dust, Shiva, the superdimensional calculator, and the orthogonal diagonalizer, which, by the way, I should not be able to say orthogonal diagonalizer with as much prowess and skill as I do. I can definitely see how someone who is watching the series for the first time would be confused by all the stuff that is being thrown around. I know I was. Despite all of this though, I'm actually less and less bothered by this the more I watch it. The main reasons why I think this are that I'm still able to enjoy the story and characters in spite of all this random terminology that is being thrown around. And also, I think it's kind of fun trying to piece together the meaning behind a lot of what is being said. The last time I saw this show, it was between a few friends in a Discord server, and thanks to them I understood a lot more of what was being said than what I knew before. So if you didn't understand a lick of what this show was saying, then watch it with the boys. So that's complaint number 1 and out of the way. And as for thing number 2, I think a lot of you guys might be surprised to find out that it actually revolves around this show's title character. I got a few bones to pick with Godzilla Ultima. The first one is that I think he's far too derivative of past Godzillas, especially Shin Godzilla. I know that this is a big point amongst many detractors of the show, but honestly, I think they do kind of have a point. Contrary to what many people believe, Godzilla Ultima was the first Godzilla to be heavily influenced by Shin and not Godzilla Earth. And man, you can definitely tell. There are obviously plenty of scenes that are plucked straight out of Shin. The only big differences are color palette changes and the changes in Godzilla's design. Ultima also does the exact same thing as Shin, except without any of the added depth that makes Shin so scary. This mainly comes down to his evolution. Shockingly enough, I don't mind Ultima being another evolving Godzilla. I think that evolution itself is a really fun concept for Godzilla, as it allows for him to be much more varied and dangerous. See Shin if you want to see a great evolving Godzilla. Though, I think the evolutions being a carbon copy of Shin really hinders Ultima from being his own thing. Like, to bring up an idea, why not have Aquatilus and Amphibia fused together to form into Terrestris, and then from there he evolves into Ultima proper? The show really wants to push that Godzilla is this world-ending catastrophic threat, so why not have something like that, where a forbidden fusion of two monsters leads to a brand new Beast of the Apocalypse being born? That's what I thought was initially gonna happen, but instead we just got Shin Godzilla Light. On the topic of that whole Beast of the Catastrophe thing, this show really wants to push that Ultima is a supremely intimidating force to be reckoned with, but honestly, I don't really feel his presence a lot of the time. He's intimidating in a few instances, such as when he kills the Rodan swarm in the last episode, or when he first comes ashore in episode 7, but most of the time he really doesn't do that much. He just kind of vibes in Tokyo until the final episode where he actually does something other than just hanging out, and at that point it's too little too late. Godzilla is kind of a nothing force in this show. His tenure can basically be summed up as him doing a cool thing and then hanging out, does cool thing and then hangs out, rinse and repeat until the final episode. Apparently figuring out what to do with Godzilla was the most difficult part of production for this show, but I think that what we got was pretty weak, and I think that with another rewrite or two, then Ultima could have been something truly special. With all that said though, I don't hate Godzilla Ultima. At least he's consistently written throughout his 6-episode tenure, but I just think that this show could have done a lot more with him to make him truly stand out from the other Godzillas in the series. So that's pretty much everything I have to say about Godzilla Singular Point. So to summarize, I thought that this show was a pretty good time. While being on the lower half of my Reiwa Godzilla ranking, I still think that overall it's a worthwhile time, and I would tell people to go out and watch it. So I'm gonna give Godzilla Singular Point a 7 out of 10. But of course, these were just my thoughts, and I want to know yours. Did the things that bother me bother you? What was your favorite part about the show? Are you excited for the possibility of more Singular Point, or are you dreading it? Be sure to sound off those thoughts in the comment section below, as well as check out my social medias and my Discord server, which can be found in the description below. And if you guys like what you saw and want to see more, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. But either way, I'm Sam the Geigen fan, telling you all to wash your hands and tell me what a Singular Point is, because I still really don't know.